Okay, hi all. I'm just re-recording this. I feel like the first recording wasn't really all that good. So yeah, I just had to make a lot of edits and hide a lot of stuff I'd accidentally showed my desktop quite a few times, and yeah, it was just not good. Yeah, so basically today I'm going to be showcasing how you can create this Mesh VFX. It's a tornado mesh. If I run the game, you'll see that it's a looping texture. So um, basically, this is how I went about creating these effects here. So one of them, this one here, I took a lot more time on. I spent a good week on this, just trying to learn the techniques and stuff like that in Blender. This is a more advanced version of the tornado. I've supplied the blend file for Blender in the sorry, the video description. That will have a link to that. So if you want to download it and have a look at the nodes that I use to create this type of effect inside of Blender, then you can do that. I'm going to be trying to cover how you can create this sort of effect, however. Today it's a more basic version of the tornado, but yeah. Um, the place that I've got here is also going to be up for upload and up for download, sorry, and you can take this and just use it however you see fit. Basically, this is just a collection of different models which have already been created. So this is actually just one tornado, and I've sort of layered the others all together. So to explain how this is sort of working, it's essentially two parts that I've got here with two different meshes inside of it. So I'm using special meshes simply due to the fact that if you try to use a mesh part, you won't be able to change the color of the decals just because of the way Roblox limits this. So I've had to come up with a solution to this problem where we have two separate models. One of them has the faces inverted inwards, so the normals are inverted, and the other one is not. It has got the faces facing outwards, and when you stack them on top of each other, you get the full effect. And with by doing it that way, you can effectively change the color of the tornado to whatever you want. So you can change it to any of these colors, and because there's an emission channel on the actual texture itself within Blender, you can push the number higher and get sort of a glow. And you can also mix that color, mix the glow, sorry, by using the bloom setting inside of inside of Roblox as well. So you can actually change the threshold and size and stuff like that. So yeah, you can get like different glow effects and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, all this really is, it's just a mesh ID and a couple of scripts. So the script IDs here are basically acting as if they are flipbooks. So we're looping through them, and each of these are just an image. And the images that I created here were all created inside of Blender. Um, so yeah, if you guys, you can take this script and it's nothing complicated. It's just the technique of how you actually create this sort of thing. So I'm gonna head into Blender now, and I'm gonna show you basically the very basics of how I did this, and I'm just gonna run through how you can sort of make the same thing. You can obviously make different models and get fancy with it. So we're in Blender. This is just a blank Blender file, so just delete everything out. And what you're going to do is you're just going to add in a cylinder. We're going to scale it up, and we're just going to delete the top and bottom faces. I do encourage anyone who's watching just to go follow a short tutorial on how to use Blender, because this is just the very basics of how to use it. So we're just going to scale the edges up for this sort of tornado. We're just trying to accomplish some sort of cone-like shape, and yeah, I'm just going to try and do something like this. It's just an open cylinder, and we're going to add in some edge loop cuts just for some more control over this. So I'm just going to do something very low poly like that. So that's going to be basically the funnel shape, sort of. So we'll do that maybe. Yeah, so that'll be the funnel shape that we're going for. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click Shade Smooth, just so that we can see it a little nicer, and we're going to add a modifier, and the modifier is going to be a simple deform, and we're going to twist it on the Z axis by a certain amount. So we're going to do that just so that we can like get the nice spiral shape in here when we're editing the texture. And just so that it's not as low poly, we're going to add in, we're going to generate a subdivision surface, and that's just going to smooth it all up for us. Just be careful you don't go too high with that, because it can prevent you from importing into Roblox. So yeah. What I like to do next is I'll go into the shading tab, and for you it may look a little different. So if it does look different, just go to the top right, click on this little drop down, and switch the world opacity down from 1 to 0. And on the left hand side, you want to switch the option here to timeline, and that will give you this timeline. And basically this setup here is perfect for creating the animations that we need. So the timeline is going to be used for our control over what we're actually animating, and we have our image display here, so we can actually see what we're baking out. And down at the bottom right here is the actual material editor with the shader graph. So all you need to do here is hit the new button. It's going to create a new material, and we're just going to delete the initial BSDF that gets generated. There's no need for that at the moment. And to use this menu, you simply just right click and you can add in things from these menus. But what I like to do is I like to just hit the tab key and we can just search for things. So the very first thing we're going to need is we're going to need a texture coordinate. This is just a simple texture coordinate node because we're going to be using the UVs of our mesh. So if you click on the UV tab and drag off, you can then search for a node called mapping. So what that's going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to basically change the XYZ rotation and scale of the UVs on our mesh, so we can like edit how the image actually looks on the surface of the model, if that makes any sense. The next thing we're going to add is it's called a Voronoi texture. This is a commonly used noise node that's used quite a lot actually for creating sort of like the anime sort of styled, spikes and stuff like that you see in a lot of textures. You'll see what I mean. When we take So basically, based on the Voronoi texture here, if we drag off the pin and we add in a color ramp, this is just sort of like a gradient. So if this is your first time seeing all of this, it can be a little overwhelming, but there is other videos and guides on this, but I'm just sort of showcasing how I go about doing this. So we're going to just connect the color to the surface. I'm going to show you what it's doing. So this is what we're sort of getting initially. If we go to the scale, we can actually scale this down. You can sort of see what it's doing. And the sort of end goal here is to try and create something that resembles a tornado. And of course it doesn't really look like much at the moment, but if I take the color ramp and start playing with the color ramp and pulling this down, you can see what I was sort of talking about in terms of the anime, slashes and waves and stuff like that you see all the time. If we play with the scale value, you can see here that we're getting this sort of shape. And if you play with the scale value on the actual UVs, you can control it even more. So you can actually wrap it around even more. Get something like this. So that looks pretty cool. Now there is a big problem where the image, the dark areas aren't actually transparent. So the way you fix that is you have to go into the material itself, scroll down, and you should see a settings menu. You just open that, and in the blend mode, set alpha clipped to enabled, and then set the shadow mode to none. Now that's not going to do anything for us just yet, but it's going to allow the material to be transparent. So the next thing we want to do to set up the transparency is we want to come out of the color ramp and we want to search for a mix node, and we're going to mix the shader. So we need a mix shader node. We're going to plug that straight into the surface. It's going to make our whole thing disappear for a second, but that's fine. We're going to go to the shader and we're going to add in a transparent BSDF, and that's basically what's going to make the background of this to basically go invisible. And we want to add this other shader here, and we're going to add in a emission, and that's going to bring back the color, so we can actually change the color if we want using this. And this is what we use inside of Roblox Studio when I'm messing with the colors inside of the decal. That's sort of what's controlling that. So it's the exact same texture that we just had there, but we're actually deleting the black out of the background, and we're now getting the transparency involved here. So if we increase the detail, we start messing with this sort of stuff, like all of these different settings, you can see that we're sort of getting this type of shape. And right now it's just static, there isn't really anything happening, so we're going to have to animate it. So if you go to the location values and you sort of play with these, they go a little fast, so you might need to hold shift. So if you hold shift and click and drag, you can sort of see what we're going for. So this is what I'm going to be animating today. So I'm going to be animating the Y value. You can animate the Z or X value as well to get this sort of effect, or the actual turn in the rotation, but you can do what you see fit with this. You can also edit the amount of change with the color ramp, and obviously you can take this approach and mix it with other types of noise values. You can create gradients to hide certain places, because right now this is a very basic version of it. It's just clipping at the top and it's not really clean looking, but that's why I've offered the blend file for the other tornado that I created, because I took a lot more time, and I actually took a lot more time to make it look decent for an open source. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that. So in order to animate this Y value, we need to click on it, and this is a Blender only thing, but if you do a hashtag frame and then divide it by a number, say 50, and press the space bar, it's going to start playing the animation, and depending on the number you put in here, it's going to go slow or fast. So 25 is pretty fast, so if we put like 100 in here, it's going to go relatively slow. We'll do like I don't know, 75 or something. Yeah, so now we've got like a sort of inwards vortex happening. This could be useful for certain effects, but we're going to go for the opposite. So if we click on the frame and put a negative symbol in there and press enter, we're going to get the opposite effects. It's now coming up and out. And of course, this is just a funnel shape. This is just a simple cylinder. You could put this exact same material here onto other types of shapes, like circles or custom looking things, in order to get what you want, and you can mess with it even further. If you want to sort of see how it's going to look in terms of the glow, if you go to the render engine, if you go up to here, up to render, and click on bloom, that's actually going to enable the bloom setting inside of the Blender editor. If we go to the strength and type in like 25, it's a bit much. If we go to maybe 5, and we can change the color, you can sort of simulate what it's going to look like in Roblox before you export it. So this is what I sort of do. So I sort of try and get a feel for what this is going to look like. Now this is just a static basic, this is just a very simple one emission color. There's no other complexity happening here. It's very, very basic, but this is just to give you an idea of how you can go about doing this. So I'm gonna put it back to white for the moment, like so. We'll take off the bloom now. I'm going to show you guys how you can export this, export basically the images from this into Roblox now. So there's a smart thing that there was an issue that I ran into when I was trying to do this myself. So the fix for it, I'm just going to quickly add in a greater than. Sorry, we don't put it there, we put it here. So we do a greater than value, and we clamp it at 0.5. Now the reason I've added a greater than node with the value of 0.5 is because when I was baking this out before in the past, it was losing a lot of detail. So this retains a lot of the information, and it also keeps the transparency, and it doesn't break anything. So if you're having trouble, try and add one of these at the end of your graph node before it goes into the mix shader. That helped me. So yeah, and the next step is to change the render engine. So you need to go to the render option here on the right hand side, set it to cycles. I like to set it to GPU. You can leave it on CPU depending on your machine. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go and we're going to go down to the bake menu. We're going to just untick all of these. We don't really need them. I just like to enable the indirect and emit options just in case. And I'm also going to just go in here, hit the tab key, and we're just going to add in a image texture, and this is what's going to be used to basically bake out our texture. So we're going to hit new, untitled is fine, hit new image. Select this option, select this box, make sure the object is selected. You can tell by the orange highlight around the object, and if you press bake, you should get a bar here at the bottom, and this should bake out your texture. So on the bottom left, you should see the texture now, and you'll see that it cuts off in the middle. That's absolutely fine. That's normal. That's just the way our UVs have been laid out because we're using a cylinder. It's automatically been UV'd, so we don't have to do any crazy UV editing. You can, if you wish, you can go more in depth with that. But if you start editing the UVs, that will affect how this texture looks and stretches across the mesh. So far, we have this timeline set to about 250 frames, which is quite a lot of frames. We don't want 250 separate images, so I'm going to try and limit this to about, let's say, 15 images, something like that. Now, the issue here is this is a very basic animation and it doesn't loop well, so yeah, just take that into an account. It's not a seamless animation. It's something I'm trying to work on and trying to solve. It's because we're using a randomized noise. It's very difficult to loop it. It requires quite a lot of maths to do that in the nodes. I've had a look at it on Blender's side and it's kind of crazy. But yeah, so we'll set it to 0 and we'll limit by clicking on the end here, we'll limit it to 25 frames. So go through here, we'll do that. Okay, and yeah, so basically after you do that, you would need to click this, click image, and then click save as, and you can save out the image as a separate image each time. But as you can imagine, that goes pretty slow because you would have to do each one each time. So what I've done is I've came up with a solution to that problem by including a script. So this script is going to be included along with the files for this project. Basically, the way you need to use this script is you need to make sure that the timeline is set to your maximum value of what you want to bake. So for my baking here, I'm just gonna just for the sake of the video, I'm just gonna set it to 10, just so it doesn't take too long. So we're just gonna have 10 images. It's not gonna look all that great, but yeah, the more images, the better it will look. You want to change the output folder to your folder on your desktop. So you want to change it from users to whatever your name of your PC is to the folder you want to put these images into. And you want to change the node that you're baking it to bake target. Now to do that, if I just copy this name, if you go into the shading graph, this is what this is referring to. So if you click on this node, click on this little icon here, you need to make sure that you rename this area here. So this is the node name, bake target, and scripting. So after you do that, just make sure that the actual image, mesh here is selected, and when you press the run button, this will, it might slow down your machine, but don't panic, it's just Blender. If it crashes, it's just because it's rendering out the frames and baking them multiple, one after another, so it might lock up, but don't panic, it does bake out. So if I press this run button, this will now begin to bake out the textures. This is basically doing this behind the scenes. So if I open up the folder on my other monitor, and I will show you. So if I show you real quick, this is the folder, the Tornado Auto Test on my desktop that we have set on the script. It's now baking out, it's going to go all the way to 10 frames. And once the 10th frame is finished, we're then going to import these images into Roblox, and I'll show you how you can export the mesh and import the textures into Roblox Studio. So once it reaches 10, this should stop because there isn't any more in our timeline. We've set it for a maximum of 10, that's fine. And we've now got control over over Blender again, sorry. And if we now go to our layout, basically what we need to do is we need to export out this mesh. Now to export out a mesh, you simply go to File, Export, and you go to Export FBX, and you save it onto your desktop. After you've saved the mesh onto your desktop, what you need to do next is you need to go into Edit Mode, and you need to press Control A, and you need to go to Mesh and flip the normals. So you go to the Mesh menu, go to Normals and Flip. And what that's going to do for you there is it's going to basically it's going to give you the two sets of models that you need, and then after you flip the mesh, simply come out of edit mode and just export the exact same one again, but just rename it to a different model. So you should have two meshes. You should have one that has normal faces, and you should have one that has flipped normals. After you do that, you want to come into Roblox. I'm not going to do it here just so that I'm not showcasing anything on my desktop or anything like that. But what you want to do is when you're in Roblox, what you want to do is you want to create a part, and you want to create a special mesh inside of that part, and then you want to upload the mesh. So you can do that by going to the View option and going to the Asset Manager. And if you press on Bulk Import, basically that's going to allow you to bulk import. So you want to bulk import all of these images here, as well as the two meshes that you exported from Blender. I've not personally exported the meshes, but I'll import the frames just to show you. So I've already did this before, so it's already gonna basically rename these. Just be careful when you are importing the meshes. It may ask you to flip the normals. Just make sure that you untick that option when the time comes. So when you go to import your model, just make sure that it's not flipping any normals, because that's exactly what we did already. So the next thing you want to do is you want to we'll grab a couple. In fact, yeah, we'll grab this tornado here since we already have it. So once you create your part, you want to create a special mesh. You want to put your mesh ID into it, and then you pretty much want to go into your script, and you want to replace the IDs with the IDs here. So there should be 10 of them. So if we do that real quick. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. Yeah, so if we just copy the IDs, so you want to put the first one at the top of the list, just because in code it runs top down. So we'll do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, dokie, and we'll just copy paste the IDs into the other script, which yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention, if you've got yeah, you want to make two separate parts. So once you make a part, once you have your mesh, you want to put a script into this. Now, obviously, you can change however this works. You don't have to have a script here. You can run the script elsewhere, but yeah, I just wanted to let you know. Then you want to add a decal. The decal is going to control the textures. And then you want to basically duplicate it. And in the second part, you want to put the other mesh that you created. You want to put the mesh that has the flipped normals into there, and you want to overlap them so it looks like this. And if I take just one of these IDs, the decals, pop this in here. So this is what we just exported from Blender. So this is what it looks like, and because I've just replaced the images, if I just run, this is sort of what we're getting. So as you can see, this is sort of how I went about creating the meshes. Now, as you can see, they sometimes flicker. Now, it's flickering like that because I'm capturing a video. They flicker if there's a lot of CPU usage and if there's a lot of basically a lot of bottleneck on this. So if you're doing this type of effect, I would highly recommend that you run it on the local client. Right now I'm just running it on scripts on the parts, so it may not be super efficient. But yeah, that's basically the rundown of how I went about doing this. I can cover a more in-depth guide on Blender on how I actually created this, because this is one of the this is this is included, sorry, with the files, and this one I took a lot more time and detail on, and you can see that the node network is a little bit more complicated, but to break it down, these two gradient textures here are basically just hiding the top and the bottom parts of the tornado mesh just so that it looks nicer. We're just simply mixing the colors together. And I'm also using a custom PNG, which is this file here, which I made in Substance Designer. It's a tileable texture because I was trying to solve the tileable issue, but I still haven't really worked it out yet, sadly. And then we're mixing it with a Voronoi texture, which we've already done in our first Blender guide here, and then we're using the greater than trick again, and then we're simply using the script to bake out the textures again. And yeah, and that's basically what it looks like. And inside of Roblox, it's very easy to set up. It's just a simple script to loop through all of the textures, and yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all you need. If you wanted to make anything more complicated like this to dissolve or vanish, that would be fairly straightforward as well. You would just have to like add in, you just have to like animate in some sort of color ramp or something like that. You just have to like add in the ability to do that, because you can definitely add something like that in. I'm currently working on some other stuff behind the scenes as well, which I'll be covering in future guides to do with Mesh VFX, but you can do that. So you can do dissolve effects, you can do all of the stuff that you normally could do inside of other game engines, but you just have to do it through Blender, sadly, because Roblox doesn't have this built in. So yeah. Um, I hope this guide was helpful. If not, just let me know. I've tried to condense it from my last video, but yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.